Hi, it's Deb with Free from Food Addiction, and I want to talk to you today about overwhelm, about how to overcome overwhelm, actually, because I've been speaking with so many really high achieving, very intelligent women over the last few days and actually the last couple of weeks, where overwhelm is such a common pattern. And it's like, we get on a good run, we have some exciting things that happen in our lives, and then all of a sudden it's like we hit that breaking point where it's too much, and it becomes really overwhelming, and then we start going into all of our old patterns, obsessing and feeling disconnected and just never feeling okay and waiting for the other shoe to drop, and being really, really obsessive. And of course that takes us back to the food and needing to, go grab something for ease and comfort, and it just brings us right back into all of that sabotage. And then we feel so weighted down by the enormity of everything that we need to do that we can't even get the clarity of, like, what's the one thing that I need to do right now to actually pierce through all of this overwhelm and actually have some freedom. So, what I want to share with you today, if you relate to any of that, are really just some tools to support you in that, and also just some insight around, what I realized in my own life was some of my common patterns with getting overwhelmed, and really realizing that for me, my state of overwhelm, because see, today it's really weird how overwhelm is not one of the things that I get into. And I'm not saying that life is perfect. I'm not saying that I'm perfect by any means. But it's so fascinating how I used to be constantly overwhelmed by life, and that's actually not something that happens for me anymore. And so what I want to do is just like just share with you a little bit more about, like, how it does look for me, how I do move through life without getting into that state of overwhelm. And I think there's some really, really key distinctions that I discovered for myself that I want to impart and share with you. So the first thing really is that I needed to recognize my pattern of overwhelm. It for the longest time it seemed like overwhelm was just this thing that happened to me, and that I was going on in life, and then all of a sudden everything just felt like too much, and I felt like not enough, and I was like in a very, very familiar pattern. But it always felt like it was just because, like, life all of a sudden just became too much, and it was too much for me, and I would feel really inadequate. And what I had to get was that overwhelm was something that I was creating inside of me. It wasn't something that was happening outside of me, that was happening to me, but it was an experience that was happening inside of me. My clients know that I have a term that I refer to called spiritual inflammation. When we talk about, like, physical inflammation in the body and chronic physical inflammation in the body, which is that low grade inflammation in our bodies that really inhibits how our nervous system is functioning and how our hormones are functioning, and our stress response, and all that stuff. Our rest and repair system really gets off kilter, and these are all some of the things, aches and pains that happen from physical low grade inflammation. And so when we consider what those spiritual inflammation things are, that low grade spiritual inflammation, I would refer to that as, like, just that restlessness and irritability, that constant sense of anxiety or impending doom, the tendency to just be constantly worried about something, or be constantly chewing on something. Maybe you're chewing on some resentment, or just feeling overwhelmed, like life is too much, being obsessed, or just that inner feeling of angst and not feeling okay. These are all ways that I describe, like, this level of spiritual inflammation. And what I had to realize for myself was that was a condition going on inside of me. And it wasn't that all of these external things were creating that, but rather that internal condition inside of me was projecting my experience of overwhelm on the outside world. And so then I was getting experiences of and evidence of that restlessness, that not okayness, that things not being in flow on the outside. So that was really key for me, because what it taught me was that I didn't need to spend my days and my hours and my minutes really trying to fix all the things that were going on outside of me. In fact, I wasn't here to fix anything at all. I was here to actually just get free from the stuff that was blocking me internally. I was here to treat that spiritual inflammation that was going on inside of me. And when I was able to treat that, when I was able to address that and come into a congruent relationship inside of myself, it was remarkable how that then became reflected around me. So that would be the first thing that I would just offer to you, is that consider that it's not that there's things going on the outside that are creating your internal experience, but rather that there's an internal experience that's projecting things on the outside. And the second thing that I really had to get honest with myself, was how my pattern of overwhelm was serving me. Because it was something that it was like a default of mine. And, things like life would start getting good, and things would start going in my way, however, whatever that way was, whatever I thought, was like me getting, what I thought that I wanted, kind of thing. And then and then all of a sudden it would be too much, and it would be overwhelming. And then, all these things would happen. And so this pattern was so common that what I really had to look at was, how is this pattern actually serving me? How am I actually getting something from this? And when I flipped my question into that consideration, then I really got to see something so fascinating. I really got to see how I had a deep fear of actually things working out. Like if it wasn't overwhelming, and if actually everything got done, and I was being called to that next level of contribution, or of showing up, or of getting outside my comfort zone, helping more people, really being seen, then what if I disappointed? What if I messed up? What if I failed? I was so afraid of failing, or even afraid of succeeding and then needing to maintain some kind of success or something. It was like all about me. But what I realized was that this state of overwhelm allowed me to stay in just enough chaos, just enough, focus on putting out all of the fires going on in my life, that I never really actually had to get to the next level of contribution, of showing up, of authenticity, of honesty, of truly feeling, of truly being intimate and connected with others. There were just all of these things that overwhelm allowed me to really block. And in that way, it allowed me to stay in a familiar space, because, when I'm not in a state of overwhelm, when I'm not in a state of anxiety, in a state of, just putting out fires and everything's crazy and everything's chaotic, then it's like, oh my gosh, then I have to be me. And what if me isn't enough? What if something here just is not lovable? What if something here is just broken? And I'd have to confront all of these deeper fears. And so what I realized is that for me, overwhelm was my way of distracting me from the deeper fears that were going on underneath. This was so huge for me to realize. Because again, I thought that overwhelm was something that was happening outside of me. Then I realized, no, overwhelm is something that's happening inside of me. And actually, overwhelm is my go-to to not deal with the underlying fears and discomfort of fear and all of those limiting beliefs that I have about myself, and all that stuff that makes me feel so icky and so inadequate and so alone. Overwhelm actually becomes my solution to not feeling that stuff. So I really, really had to see how overwhelm and how the pattern of overwhelm was actually helping me to solve something. It was a solution for me, and it was really serving me in many, many ways. So all of this stuff became so illuminating for me. And ultimately what I had to see was that and this was so key for me. I had to see that overwhelm was something, it was a pattern that was really mastering me. It was really owning me. It was something that I was like really powerless to change or fix on my own. And I know that can like get into some really uncomfortable, icky kinds of conversations. But I want to make a very clear distinction is that there is a difference between being a slave to a pattern and being a victim to it. Now, I don't believe in victimhood because victimhood is like I am being mastered by something and there is nothing that I can do about it. And I don't actually subscribe to that so much. But when I see that, oh my gosh, I am just being a slave. I'm being mastered by something and I'm a slave to it. Like I am in this pattern that I can't fix or change on my own. But what I can do is I can submit to a process, a spiritual process to treat the underlying spiritual inflammation that is driving this whole process in the first place. I can definitely do something different. Not in me trying to fix or change or, abracadabra, like fix my world on the outside and make everything perfect. That's something that is not within my wheelhouse to do. However, I can do something. I can turn, I can ask, I can start working on accessing the deeper power, the inner guidance, the inner support, the inner trust, that feeling of being provided and protected. I can start working on accessing that. And from that place where I become congruent, where I come back to the real me, the me that lies underneath all of the fears and the delusions and all that kind of stuff, the real, true me, when I can come back to that place and get free from all of the stuff that's blocking me from accessing that, then I can stand in my own power. Then I can trust my gut. Then I can really live with an open heart and be able to feel my feelings and not be weighed down by resentment and fear. It means that I can speak my truth and be authentic out in the world. It means that my thoughts are aligned with divine will. And it means that I can be of real help out in the world. And that is the true mark of becoming congruent inside. And when I can come back to that place, then things like obsession, overwhelm, addiction, anxiety, all that stuff falls away. Because I come back to the truth of who I really, really am. And so what I would offer you to consider is that overwhelm becomes an access point for you. Overwhelm is a way for you to be able to recognize that there is a journey for you to go on that's deep, deep down within yourself. That nothing else around you needs to change. No one needs to change. All you need to do is just go deep within. Start to get honest. Start to get free from the stuff that is blocking you inside, getting free from those fears, getting free from those limiting beliefs. Submit yourself to a spiritual process that will address the spiritual inflammation so that you can come back into a congruent space. You can access your own inner guidance. You can live from that inner power. And from that place, sister, I'm telling you that overwhelm falls away. The patterns fall away. You will do what you do as long as you need to until you don't have to do it anymore. That's just it. You're going to do what you're going to do until you don't have to do it anymore. And so as you submit to a process where you can come back to you become congruent, you will find that you no longer need to run these patterns anymore. They just fall away. They become just like unnecessary. It's kind of like outgrowing old clothing, you know, when you're like a baby moving into a toddler or moving into a young kid, you outgrow your clothes. And these are just tools that might have served you at one point, and they were really, really tools that helped you to feel safe, and you've simply outgrown them. And so I want you to know that there is a different way of being with all of this, And the access point of overwhelm is huge. And I want to give you a tool as to how you can start to use overwhelm and use it as an access point to gain deeper freedom in your own life. So when you recognize that you are in a state of overwhelm, you know, that's the first thing. Like, can you just recognize it? Can you get honest about, okay, I'm doing that pattern again? So powerful. And then can you not take it personally? This is so important, because if you're relating to my story, I can tell you right now that I have spoken with thousands of women all over the world who all have this pattern that we're running. So it's not just you, even though it makes you feel terminally unique. I know, we all want to be terminally unique. We are actually so common. We are so common. We have such a similar story. And so to not take it personally, but to just recognize, hey, this is the pattern. This is like this archetypal pattern that happens with so many of us around overwhelm. And so can I be deeply, intimately connected to it, but can I not take it so personally? It's going to be so huge for you to not take it personally, but still allow yourself to get really, really up close and intimate with it. And when I say get up close and intimate with it, what I mean is, like, for me, when I feel overwhelmed, I know that I am up in my head all day long. Overwhelm means that I'm spinning somewhere up here, and I'm like, I've got a lot of limiting beliefs here about like not being enough and things being too much, and then feeling like I'm disappointing others. And I'm running so many stories that I just am completely cut off from my body. And so what's really important is for me to connect into my body. And I do that through breath. And I bring my awareness all the way down to my body, all the way down to my feet. And then the last tool is to be here now. Overwhelm, anxiety, and obsession, and fear are all things that happen to us when we are not right here, right now. And we're either stressing about something that happened in the past, or we are tripping out about something that may or may not happen in the future, but we are not here, right now. And so using that breath, coming down into your body, and really, really connecting into the present moment. So powerful to get out of that overwhelm. So I hope that those tools helped you. I would love to hear how overwhelm is really affecting you in your life, and really hear if what I shared, you know, if this feels valuable to you, and if there are other questions that you have. Would love to know that. So definitely reply to this message, and I look forward to connecting with you more. Bye for now. Mwah.